I absolutely want to talk about labor and everything. I want to talk about this story real quick because it segues into a discussion about jobs and labor. We have this from the Post-Millennial. Nearly 80% of Americans believe U.S. is in a state of decay. The poll found that 76.8% of respondents believe American society and culture is in a state of decay. A poll from the Trafalgar Group and Convention of States Action published on Thursday revealed basically what I just said. Just 9.8% of respondents said the country is in a state of progress. So I bring this up in relation to what we're talking about, just because I wonder if our journalists can't do the job of criticizing the establishment, the government, the narratives, being objective, or just countering the authority, then it seems to me like what we're actually seeing is tribalism. Joe Rogan is smeared and slammed as far right by many of these outlets when he challenges the establishment in this way. And these quote unquote news organizations just shill for whatever the government or establishment line is. That says to me, it's not necessarily representative of decay in this country, although it seems like a lot of people seem to believe this country is in decay, but that we've fractured to a point where both sides are probably looking at each other as the problem, as the decay in this country. You know what I mean?
But it's not both sides. Look how many sides are really involved in the rot. Our journalists let us down in ways that we can't even imagine. Our politicians, of course, are in it for the next election, and they've let us down in, I think, a pretty equal way. Our scientists have let us down, not because they're scientists, but because there's no consensus, and they all sound so damn certain. I don't mind you being wrong, but where's the humility? Where did the humility go? Those are three big pillars right there that I think disappointed a lot of people. But here's a fourth, and another reason why Rogan matters. Comedians. Our comedians have let us down. The court jester that you referenced in Anderson's Tale, where is he? Right? Now, Chappelle's doing yeoman's work, in my view. But I look around, I see a lot of comedians who, well, to be fair, there wasn't much they could do for a year, virtually. It's a different world. You know, they were hunkered down too. But the carefulness with which comedy has unfolded or failed to unfold, and we can blame cancel culture, we can blame speech, there's plenty to talk about why, but they let us down too. Nobody was holding anybody's feet to the fire in a really meaningful way.
Some people, and that's why I like the story of the emperor's clothes, right? And it does feel to me like it represents a decay. It was scientists in establishment institutions. It was journalists for the corporate press. It was mainstream politicians who are worried about their donors. They're all the ones who let us down.
Don't forget social media oligarchs. This was their time to shine, man. And shout out to Spotify for keeping this knowledge on the radio.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
which Robert Malone
the
can
censorship
speak.
that we deal with on YouTube, the censorship on Twitter, the suppressing of big political stories. It is all of these people standing there watching the emperor, which I guess just is the narrative. Nobody wanted to be the person who would call out and say, hey guys, this doesn't make sense, does it? As soon as anybody did, the entire crowd turned and yelled, you're right wing, rah, evil, evil. And so now, over the past couple of years, we not only had Joe Rogan, we had Ricky Gervais at, was it the Oscars or whatever, when he just roasted all of them?
Golden Globes, that's
what it was. We've had Ryan Long. I mean, Ryan Long has been putting out videos that have been gaining in popularity because he's not a right-wing guy. He's just a comedian who's poking fun. But we've got Dr. Robert Malone. We've got Brett Weinstein. You do have scientists, researchers, and academics who have been speaking up. But when we look to our institutions, that's what's failed us. Now, Joe Rogan is interesting because he kind of occupies both spaces. He's got his Netflix specials. He's got his mainstream arena tours. He's on Spotify. He's on iTunes. But he's always been an independent voice standing up for himself and what he believes in. And that's kind of a bridge, in my opinion, why he's been so important, is that regular people who don't care for politics, don't care for narrative, listen. They listen to his show. And then when he speaks out and does challenge the system and does say F you to all the lies, he does point at the emperor and say, you're not wearing any clothes and I don't care.
I can make a long list of things that Joe Rogan said that I don't agree with, but I have a really hard time finding an opinion that strikes me as hypocritical. He's back to what we said very, very early on. When you get starved for authenticity, the first thing I start to look for is anybody whose words match up with what they say, and who, if if they do overreach, if they do get in their own way, they'll be the first to admit it. So he has a measure of the humility that's lacking in science, in my view. He certainly has a comedian's sense of the absurd, which he uses. But most importantly, at least from what I've heard, he doesn't lie.
Well, he's willing to be wrong, and he admits when he's wrong, and he's able to look at an issue without emotionally jumping on it and deciding what it is immediately. And the way he articulates, the way he kind of fact finds this larger question, that whatever it's asked to him, he goes through these motions. The way he describes it is a way that's completely, totally different than the corporate media that has PR corporate talking points that they literally regurgitate and speak in unison as if they were in a religion, which they are.
So I want to ask, looking back at this poll, I'm wondering why people feel that the country is in a state of decay.
Well, it's a materials issue as well. We're on 150-year-old materials when we're working with steel. It's super heavy. It's decaying. Things are rusting. And of course, the economy is trash.
Here we go.
Mike, I want to ask you about graphene.
No. We'll get into that.
I think that we're literally decaying materials-wise, and people don't understand. They don't understand that there could be a solution.
We're going to talk about graphene in a little bit.
That's a ridiculous segue, Ian.
No, I think it's part of the decay that people feel.
I do agree, but that's not what people are talking about. They're talking about culture.
It's combined,
society and culture.
The water we drink.
I can help. I can help with this. I see what he's trying to do. And I see what you're trying to do. And what I might suggest is at the root of this is what I think they call the second law of thermodynamics, right? We're living in a state of entropy. We're in a disintegrating universe. To your point, rust never sleeps. Sooner or later, it's coming for all the steel in the world. But it's also coming for our best thoughts and our best ideas and the things that we hold most dear. That stuff also has a shelf life. And it has to be nurtured, it has to be watered, it has to be challenged. And when we stop doing that and accept having our belly scratched or letting ourselves be patted on the head, right? That's a bad substitute for that. And that's not how you fight Newton's second law.
Well, I agree with you, but I think we have to have a more direct segue into this idea.
Yeah.
There is infrastructure decay in this country. Our roads are falling apart, our bridges are falling apart. We're not interested in these big projects. I often talk about how, I'm in New York and I'm crossing the Williamsburg Bridge, just looking at this monolith of a structure that's existed since before I was born. As far as I know, it's just there and I get to use it. Nobody charges me any money for it. I can walk right across it. And those are those big projects where effectively our society said, we're going to plant a tree whose shade we know we will never sit beneath. And that means the next generations will benefit from it. When I look at this country as in a state of decay, it's because it's for this reason. I see people self-interested, trying to extract as much as they can. They feel like the Titanic is sinking, and they're trying to grab as much fine china and silverware they can before they get on that boat and get out of here. Leave us all left, drowning. Mm-hmm. There's no community anymore. But what I wanted to say was I don't want to get too negative with it because I'm wondering if, seeing Joe Rogan speak up, seeing his massive success is actually an optimistic point. That we actually are seeing people come together around certain ideas and that decay is actually being reversed.
Yeah, the people stealing the China don't want a community, and that's why I think there's been such a concerted effort to push a divide and conquer agenda that, of course, puts people in different political, associations and gangs and affiliations. But we have to also recognize if someone is watching the corporate media nonstop, they are living in a totally different world than someone who doesn't watch the corporate media, who does their own homework, who does their own research, and actually gets their information from different sources and is able to actually discern information for themselves rather than just hear opinions and talking points that is the establishment narrative. So these two different worlds are of course going to be clashing with each other because these are different realities that people are living under that are completely playing by different set of rules that the other one is not playing by.
I think your metaphor is pretty great. I mean, if the economy that we're talking about here or our country is the Titanic, right? And if we're talking a post-iceberg Titanic, right? The damage has been rendered, right? We're on the clock and things are slowly devolving. If that's where we are right now, what's going on the deck, right? Some people are taking to China. Some people are angling for lifeboats. Some men are doing about the most incredibly selfless thing there is and stepping aside. Others aren't. Others are putting on wigs and dressing like women to get on the boats. Meanwhile, you got a captain who's got so much nobility baked into him that he's absolutely 100% going down with the ship. And then you have 4 dudes who fascinate me more than anybody else. The guys in the string quartet who are playing Nearer My God to Thee, providing a soundtrack unlike any other for one of the greatest, weirdest disasters of all time. And then you have the cook. You know, true story. The last guy in the water was the cook, and he was blind drunk. And he helped a lot of people into into the lifeboats. His name was Joffin. Charles Joffin was the last guy in the water and the only one to go into the water who lived. Wow. And you can look him up and you'll love his story. Point being, there was a lot going on the deck of the Titanic post-collision. And there's a lot going on in our country right now that belies that percentage.
I'm getting the feeling that some people are stealing the fuel out of the boats and taking 20-person lifeboats and getting on them by themselves and trying to have like these rich and it's not only are they taking the little trinkets, they're taking our fuel. They're just, by printing money, they're ruining our economy. They're destroying any hope we have of getting out of here.
My single biggest regret in this whole thing, in terms of stuff I've said on the public record, late in March, I did one of the first Zoom shows, right, after the lockdowns. It was with the captains of the Deadliest Catch. And I said to Sig Hansen in the middle of the show, you know, for the first time, and these are crab fishermen, by the way, just to stick with the nautical metaphor. I said, for the first time in my life, it really, truly seems like we're all in the same boat, right? 15 days to flatten the curve. We're coming together. We're going to do it. We're all in the same boat. Oh, bull crap. You know what? We're all in the same storm. But to your point, our boats are very different. That guy's in a dinghy. That guy's in a yacht. Right? Yep. That guy's in a freighter.
Yep.
That guy's hanging on to a piece of driftwood, wondering if anybody's going to pick him up. Right? So we have never been in the same boat, ever once. But for the first time in my life, we really, truly were in the same storm. And dude, that's amazing. Because if you think of every other disaster that you've lived through, right? I can think of hurricanes up the Gulf. I can think of the wildfires in Northern California, the derecho that just knocked Cedar Rapids, the inland hurricane, right? We've got plagues of ants. We got all this other stuff. But they all affect very, very specific parts of our country. This was different. This turned our whole country into the Titanic. And whether you're rearranging the deck chairs or playing Nearer My God to Thee, you know, everybody's got their part.
It was the world, too. Like 9/11 brought the U.S. together kind of for a few weeks, but this is the whole world.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to watch live, you can check out this channel Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Now, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, and if you want more unfiltered and uncensored content with all of these guests, go to timcast.com and become a member. All of these guests you know and love in exclusive segments on our website where we are unrestricted in what we talk about, so you'll definitely not want to miss it. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you all next time.